How I ate my way out of depression and laughed at my salad. Turns out my serotonin wasn't broken. It was just hangry. So one day I was lying on the couch for the third day in a row, wrapped in a blanket burrito of sadness, asking myself the big questions: am I depressed, or just low on iron? And before you judge my couch burrito lifestyle, let me ask you something. How many of you have ever eaten cereal for dinner while standing in your kitchen at 9 p.m. questioning your life choices? Thank you, my people. We're going to be friends. Turns out it was a bit of both, depression and low iron. And what followed was a delicious, sweaty, slightly awkward journey back to joy, featuring kale that I actually learned to love, deadlifts that made me cry for different reasons, and some very public crying in yoga pants at Target. Because apparently that's where epiphanies happen now. But here's the plot twist nobody prepared me for. My brain wasn't broken. It was just really, really hungry for the right stuff. And today I'm going to tell you how I literally ate my way out of the darkest period of my life, one questionable food choice and victory at a time. Meet depression. The unwanted roommate depression, if you've never had the pleasure, is like that roommate who shows up uninvited, eats all your snacks and whispers that you're worthless at 2 a.m. Except this roommate lives inside your head, so changing the locks doesn't work. Mine moved in during what I like to call the great life implosion of 2023. Job stress, relationship drama, and my grandmother's death all decided to have a party in my emotional living room at the same time. And depression doesn't knock politely. It kicks down the door like, "Hey girl, remember how you used to enjoy things?" Well, forget that. Here's some existential dread and the overwhelming urge to scroll Instagram while lying horizontally. The science behind this lovely experience is actually fascinating in a terrifying way. Depression messes with your serotonin. That's your brain's happiness DJ. It cranks up inflammation like your brain is having an allergic reaction to life itself. It throws your hormones into chaos and basically tells your gut bacteria to throw their own little tantrum. Imagine your brain is like a nightclub, right? Usually there are bouncers keeping things orderly, a DJ playing good vibes, and everyone's having a decent time. Depression kicks out the bouncers, messes with the DJ, locks the fridge, and somehow convinces everyone that the party was never fun anyway. For me, it started small. I stopped cooking and started living on what I called depression appetizers. You know, a handful of crackers here, some leftover pizza there, maybe some ice cream at midnight while watching Netflix shows I'd already seen 12 times. I convinced myself I was too busy to eat properly, too tired to cook, too overwhelmed to care. But really, I was feeding my depression and starving my recovery. I was basically running a bed and breakfast for my own misery. Welcome, anxiety. Here's some processed sugar and caffeine. Oh, and insomnia. I made you some late-night screen time with a side of existential crisis. The gut-brain romance, or how my poop got a PhD in happiness. Okay, here's where things get weird and wonderful. Ready for this? 90% of your serotonin is made in your gut. Your gut, not your brain. So technically, your digestive system has a PhD in happiness, and your brain is just the overachieving graduate student taking notes. Which means all those times I said, "I think with my stomach," I was accidentally being scientifically accurate. Who knew? This blew my mind when I learned it. I'm sitting in my therapist's office, crying about how broken I feel, and she goes, "When's the last time you ate something that wasn't beige?" I'm like, "Excuse me, ma'am, we're discussing my existential crisis, not my food choices." She goes, "Same thing." What do you mean, same thing? Your gut bacteria are basically throwing a rave, and you keep feeding them the equivalent of stale bread and energy drinks. They're not happy. When they're not happy, you're not happy. So I go home and I Google gut bacteria happiness at 2 a.m. like a normal person, and I fall down this rabbit hole of research that basically says, your stomach has more nerve endings than your spine. Your gut produces more neurotransmitters than your brain. You have a second nervous system in your digestive tract that's been trying to text your brain like, "Hey girl, we need vegetables." But I'd been feeding my gut bacteria like they were frat boys at 3 a.m. Pizza, processed snacks, sugar crashes that could power a small city. My gut bacteria were probably having meetings like, "Listen, we've sent 17 memos about the fiber situation and she just ate another Pop-Tart. What's our next move?" So I decided to start dating vegetables. Fully. Because you don't go from Pop-Tarts to quinoa overnight without some serious emotional preparation. First I tried overnight oats. I felt very Pinterest-worthy making them. I added berries because they're antioxidants. and I wanted my breakfast to fight crime or whatever. The first bite was not Pop-Tarts. My taste buds were confused. They were like, where's the sugar rush? Where's the artificial strawberry flavor that tastes like happiness and regret? But I kept going. Added some Greek yogurt because apparently it has probiotics, which are like tiny cheerleaders for your intestines. Started eating sauerkraut, which sounds disgusting but is actually fermented cabbage that somehow makes your gut bacteria throw the good kind of party. And here's the thing nobody tells you about changing your diet when you're depressed. It feels like betrayal at first. Your brain is like, we're sad. We need ice cream and validation. And you're over here like, actually we need fiber and folate. Your depression is convinced you're trying to starve it, which to be fair you kind of are. But somewhere around week 3 of actually eating like an adult human instead of a toddler with credit cards, something shifted. I woke up one morning and realized I hadn't had that 3 p.m. crash where I feel like I need to nap under my desk. My mood felt steadier. Like I was driving a car with better suspension. The fiber was feeding the good bacteria which were making more serotonin, which was texting my brain like, hey, remember joy? It's back. The fermented foods were like sending my gut a care package full of helpful microscopic friends. I started calling my new diet the happiness menu. Lentils became little mood stabilizers. Berries were antioxidant therapy. Leafy greens were depression kryptonite. And yes, I became the person who got excited about probiotics. I'd be at parties like, have you heard about kimchi? It's fermented. My friends were concerned. But my gut bacteria were throwing the kind of party where everyone's having fun and nobody's crying in the bathroom. Blood sugar, the mood swing trap. Okay, let's talk about blood sugar because this is where things get real personal real fast. You stayed up scrolling TikTok until 1 a.m., watching videos of people who have their lives together making aesthetic morning routines. You're running late, so breakfast is coffee with extra shame and maybe a granola bar if you're feeling fancy. By 10 a.m. you're Beyoncé. You're conquering emails, you're unstoppable, you're going to reorganize your entire life and maybe learn French. By 11:30 a.m., you're a sweaty gremlin Googling how to escape your own life and wondering if it's socially acceptable to cry at your desk. What happened? Blood sugar roller coaster, baby. Your glucose levels went up and then splat down, taking your mood, your energy, and your will to live along for the ride. Here's the science. When your blood sugar crashes, your body panics. It's like, oh wait, we're dying. And floods your system with stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, the whole anxiety parade. Your brain starts catastrophizing because, as far as it knows, you're in actual danger. Except the danger is just that you ate a muffin for breakfast. I lived on this roller coaster for months. I'd have these incredible highs where I felt like I could conquer the world, followed by these crashes where I couldn't conquer making a sandwich. Thought I was just moody. Turns out I was just hangry. Chronically, dramatically hangry. My poor friends and family. They never knew which version of me they were going to get. Morning coffee me. Optimistic, ready to start a business. Post-lunch crash me. Convinced I was failing at life and should probably become a hermit. So I started experimenting with something revolutionary. Eating actual meals. At regular intervals. I know, groundbreaking stuff. Protein became my best friend. Eggs in the morning instead of coffee and anxiety. Greek yogurt with nuts instead of whatever sad snack I could grab while running out the door. I started treating my blood sugar like a moody pet that needed consistent feeding or it would destroy my furniture. Sweet potatoes became my emotional support vegetable. Brown rice was my steady boyfriend. Reliable, comforting, never let me down. I'd meal prep on Sundays like I was preparing for battle, which honestly I kind of was. The battle against my own terrible eating habits. And the difference was remarkable. Instead of riding the glucose roller coaster, my energy became more like a gentle train ride. Still moving but not trying to give me whiplash every 2 hours. The thing about blood sugar stability is that it doesn't just affect your energy, it affects your entire emotional landscape. When your glucose is steady, your mood has room to breathe. You can actually respond to life instead of just reacting to your last meal. I went from being a hangry gremlin to being a reasonably stable human being who only occasionally wants to throw her laptop out the window. Progress. And yes, I still eat cookies sometimes. But now I eat them with a meal like a civilized person, instead of for breakfast while standing in my kitchen questioning my life choices. Move it or lose it, your sanity. Alright, let's talk about exercise. And before you roll your eyes and think, Oh great, another person who's going to tell me to just go for a run and my depression will magically disappear. Hear me out. I hated exercise when I was depressed. Hated it. The idea of moving my body when I could barely move my thoughts seemed impossible. I was like, you want me to put on pants that aren't pajama pants and move around voluntarily? Paul said. That's unreasonable. But here's what nobody tells you about depression and exercise. It's not about becoming a fitness influencer. It's not about getting abs or running marathons or posting gym selfies with inspirational quotes. It's about literally moving the stuck energy in your body so your brain remembers it has other options besides lay here and contemplate the meaninglessness of existence. The research is actually incredible. Exercise works as well as antidepressants for many people. Not because it's magic, but because it does exactly what antidepressants are trying to do. It boosts your brain's production of mood-regulating chemicals. When you move your body, you're basically giving your brain a cocktail of good stuff. Endorphins, which are nature's painkillers and mood boosters. BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is basically Miracle-Gro for your neurons. And dopamine, which helps you remember that some things can actually feel good. So I started small. And when I say small, I mean small. My first workout was walking to the mailbox. I counted it. I was proud of myself. Depression had set the bar so low that basic human locomotion felt like an achievement. Then I graduated to walking around the block. Then 2 blocks. Then I discovered something magical. Morning walks with sunlight. Turns out, sunlight exposure first thing in the morning does 2 incredible things for your brain chemistry. It boosts your dopamine production, which helps with motivation and pleasure. And it regulates your circadian rhythm, which helps with sleep, which helps with everything else. So there I was, stumbling around my neighborhood at 7 a.m. in my pajama pants and sneakers, looking like a zombie who'd accidentally discovered self-care. My neighbors probably thought I was having some kind of breakdown. Which, to be fair, I was. But it was a healing breakdown. After a few weeks of morning zombie walks, I felt brave enough to try something more challenging. Strength training. But not at a gym. Oh no, that was too intimidating. I started lifting weights in my living room while watching Netflix. And can I just say, there's something deeply satisfying about lifting heavy things when you're angry at the world? It's like meditation but with more grunting and the possibility of accidentally dropping something on your foot. I'd do squats during commercial breaks. Deadlifts while binge-watching true crime documentaries. I called it therapeutic weightlifting. My depression was like, you're literally picking up heavy objects and putting them down repeatedly. This is stupid. And I was like, yes, and somehow it's working better than overthinking everything at 3 a.m. But the real game changer was yoga. Now, I was not a yoga person. I thought yoga was for flexible people who drank green smoothies and had their lives together. I was inflexible, drank coffee like it was a food group, and my life was held together with anxiety and spite. But I found this YouTube channel with a teacher who was like, it's okay if you fall over. It's okay if you can't touch your toes. Just breathe and try not to die. Finally, my kind of instruction. And then it happened. I was in pigeon pose, which is basically a hip-opening stretch that looks relaxing but feels like emotional torture. And I just started crying. Not sad crying but release crying. Like my hips had been storing all my grief and stress and finally I was letting it out. I cried in my living room in yoga pants and it was the best I'd felt in months. The thing about exercise and depression is that it doesn't cure you overnight. But it gives your body a way to process emotions that aren't just thinking and overthinking. It reminds your nervous system that you can do hard things. It proves to your brain that movement is possible, change is possible, feeling different is possible. And yes, I became the person who got excited about endorphins. I text my friends like, just did 20 squats and I feel feelings. Good feelings. They were concerned but supportive. Sleep like it's your job because it is. Let's talk about sleep. Or in my case, let's talk about the lack thereof and how I turned my bedroom into an anxiety production studio. I used to call 3 a.m. scroll and sob hour. You know what I'm talking about. That magical time when you're lying in bed, scrolling through your phone, comparing your messy life to everyone else's highlight reel, and somehow convincing yourself that reading about global warming at midnight is a good life choice. Oh look, someone I went to high school with just bought a house. I can barely buy groceries. Oh, here's an article about microplastics. Great. Oh, and here's a video of someone's morning routine that starts at 5 a.m. with meditation and green juice. I can't even get out of bed before 10. My sleep schedule was what professionals might call completely deranged. I'd stay up until 2 a.m. watching Netflix shows I'd already seen, then lie awake until 4 a.m. thinking about everything I was doing wrong with my life, then finally fall asleep and wake up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck driven by my own anxiety. But here's what I learned. Sleep isn't just rest. Sleep is when your brain literally takes out the trash. While you're unconscious, your brain is running a night shift of janitors who are cleaning out all the emotional and mental debris from the day. When you don't sleep well, it's like your brain's janitors are on strike. All that stress, all those negative thoughts, all that emotional buildup from the day just stays there, accumulating, like dirty dishes in your mind sink. Poor sleep disrupts every hormone that regulates your mood. Your stress hormones go crazy. Your hunger hormones get confused, which is why you crave garbage food when you're tired. Your emotional regulation system basically throws its hands up and goes, I can't work under these conditions. So I had to break up with my phone at bedtime. This was harder than any other relationship I'd ever ended. My phone and I had been together for years. We shared everything. My secrets, my late-night fears, my need for constant distraction from my own thoughts. I had to have the talk with my phone. Listen, it's not you, it's me. Actually, no, it is you. You're feeding my anxiety and ruining my sleep. We need some space. Like physical space. You're going to live in the kitchen now. My phone was not happy about this arrangement. I started treating my bedroom like a sleep sanctuary instead of an anxiety command center. I got blackout curtains because apparently, even tiny amounts of light can mess with your melatonin production. I invested in a white noise machine because my neighbors apparently enjoy having loud conversations at midnight. I discovered magnesium supplements, which are basically nature's chill pills. Started drinking chamomile tea, which made me feel very British and sophisticated. Added some lavender oil to my night routine because apparently I was turning into the kind of person who had a night routine. And yes, I became the person who oils her feet with lavender before bed. Don't judge, it works. I went from anxiety insomniac to someone who actually looks forward to bedtime. My anxiety was confused. It was like, wait, we're not going to lie awake catastrophizing? What are we supposed to do with all these worst-case scenarios I prepared? Good sleep became the foundation for everything else. When I was rested, I had the energy to cook healthy meals. When I was rested, I could handle exercise without feeling like I was going to die. When I was rested, my emotions felt manageable instead of overwhelming. Sleep is not lazy. Sleep is not optional. Sleep is literally your brain's maintenance time. And if you're not giving your brain time to clean house, everything else, your mood, your energy, your ability to handle life, is going to suffer. Sunshine, supplements, insanity. Okay, let's talk about supplements because this is where I turned into a human gummy bear with a very expensive urine situation. First up, vitamin D. The sunshine vitamin. Except I live in a place where winter lasts approximately 11 months. And I work inside under fluorescent lights that make everyone look like they're dying. So my relationship with actual sunlight was complicated. I got my blood work done and my doctor was like, your vitamin D levels are concerning. I was like, concerning how? She goes, well, they're not quite at vampire level, but you're definitely in mushroom territory. Turns out low vitamin D is strongly linked to depression. Your brain has vitamin D receptors everywhere, and when they're not getting what they need, your mood suffers. It's like your brain is a plant that's been living in a basement. So I started supplementing with vitamin D and making a point to get outside for at least 20 minutes every day, even in winter. Even when it was cloudy. Even when I felt like a sad burrito who didn't deserve sunlight. And the difference was subtle but real. Like someone had turned up the brightness setting on my life just a tiny bit. Then there's omega-3s. Fish oil. The stuff that makes your breath smell like a marina but apparently makes your brain work better. The research on omega-3s and depression is actually incredible. EPA and DHA. Those are the specific types of omega-3s that matter. Can reduce depressive symptoms as effectively as some medications. Your brain is about 60% fat, and if you're not giving it the right kinds of fat, it's like trying to run a car on the wrong kind of fuel. I started taking fish oil supplements and eating salmon twice a week, which was a big step for someone who used to think pescatarian was a fancy word for picky eater. And yes, I burped fish for the first week. It was glamorous. But my brain was like, finally, some actual building materials instead of whatever that processed stuff was. B vitamins story. Then we get to the B vitamins. B12, folate, B6. The whole family. These are crucial for neurotransmitter production, And if you're deficient, your brain literally can't make enough of the happy chemicals. I found out I was B12 deficient, which explained a lot. B12 deficiency can literally mimic depression symptoms. I'd been treating a mood disorder when part of the problem was just that my body couldn't make the chemicals it needed. It was like finding out your car wasn't broken, it just needed gas. All this time I thought I was fundamentally flawed, and it turns out I just needed some vitamins and a better relationship with salmon. But here's the thing about supplements, they're called supplements for a reason. They supplement a good diet and lifestyle, they don't replace them. You can't just pop some vitamins and continue living on coffee and existential dread. I definitely went through a phase where I thought I could solve all my problems with the right combination of pills. My medicine cabinet looked like a health food store exploded. I was taking so many things I needed a spreadsheet to keep track. My friends were concerned. I'd show up to dinner with a little pill organizer like I was 75 years old. Hold on, let me take my evening supplements. It was a whole production. Finding balance. But eventually I found a balance. Vitamin D for the sunshine my body wasn't getting. Omega-3s for brain health. B12 because I needed it. Magnesium for sleep and muscle recovery. And probiotics because we've established that my gut bacteria are very important little friends who need support. The supplement thing taught me something important. Sometimes what feels like a personality flaw is actually just a nutritional deficiency. Sometimes what feels like mental weakness is just physical chemistry that's out of balance. You're not broken. You might just need different fuel. Connection, laughter, and letting go. More intimate, sitting down, conversational. Here's the thing nobody warns you about when you're focusing on healing through food and lifestyle. No amount of kale can replace human connection. Trust me, I tried. I got really good at taking care of my physical health. I was eating my vegetables, taking my vitamins, getting my steps in, sleeping 8 hours a night. I was like a very well-maintained machine. But I was still lonely. Depression has this sneaky way of convincing you that you're a burden. That your sadness is too much for other people. That you should just handle everything alone because asking for help is somehow selfish. So there I was, perfectly nourished and completely isolated, wondering why I still felt empty sometimes. My therapist. Yes, I got a therapist because apparently talking to myself in the mirror wasn't sufficient. She asked me, "When's the last time you laughed with another person?" I had to think about it. Like really think about it. And that's when I realized I'd been so focused on fixing myself that I'd forgotten I was a social creature who needed connection to thrive. So I started what I called Operation Rejoin the Human Race. First step, I started texting friends back instead of reading their messages and then forgetting to respond for 3 weeks. Revolutionary stuff, I know. I started saying yes to social invitations even when my depression was like, stay home, eat ice cream, contemplate the void. I'd show up to things even when I felt like garbage because I learned that sometimes you have to fake it till you make it and sometimes making it just means showing up. I went to a friend's birthday party where I knew maybe 2 people. Old me would have canceled last minute with some excuse about feeling sick. New me showed up, ate cake, made small talk about the weather and actually had fun. It was confusing. I started volunteering at a local food bank, partly because I wanted to help and partly because my therapist said helping others can boost your own mood. Turns out she was right. There's something about focusing on someone else's needs that temporarily quiets the anxious voice in your head. And slowly I started talking about my depression with people I trusted. Not the dramatic, attention-seeking kind of sharing, but the real, honest, "Hey, I've been struggling and I wanted you to know" kind of sharing. The response was surprising. Most people were like, "Oh, thank God, me too," or "I wondered if you were okay," or "How can I help?" Nobody ran away screaming. Nobody decided I was too much. In fact, being honest about my struggles made my relationships deeper and more real. I discovered that laughter is actually medicine. Not in a woo-woo way, but in a legitimate physiological way. Laughter releases endorphins, reduces stress hormones, and literally boosts your immune system. So I started seeking out things that made me laugh. Comedy shows, funny podcasts, friends who told terrible jokes. I made laughter a priority, which sounds ridiculous but was actually really effective. I learned that healing happens in relationship. Yes, the nutrition and exercise and sleep were crucial. They gave me the physical foundation I needed. But connection gave me a reason to get better. Community reminded me that I mattered, that my presence had value, that my struggles didn't make me unlovable. Because here's the truth. You can optimize your brain chemistry all you want, but if you're doing it alone, you're missing a huge piece of the puzzle. We're wired for connection. We heal in relationship. We thrive in community. And sometimes the best medicine is just someone seeing you, really seeing you, and deciding to stick around anyway. The rebirth of joy. So here I am about a year later telling you this story. And I want to be clear about something. I didn't cure my depression overnight. This isn't one of those magical transformation stories where everything became perfect and I never had another bad day. I still have hard days. I still sometimes eat cereal for dinner while standing in my kitchen. I still occasionally scroll my phone at midnight and remember why that's a terrible idea. I'm still learning, still adjusting, still figuring it out. But something fundamental shifted. I fought my depression. One meal, one walk, one weird fermented pickle at a time. And somewhere along the way, between the overnight oats and the morning sunlight and the terrible yoga poses, I laughed again. Really laughed, not the fake laugh you do when you're trying to convince everyone you're fine. I slept again. Deep, restorative sleep where I didn't wake up tired. I danced a little in my kitchen while making dinner. Just because the song was good and my body wanted to move. Because healing isn't linear. It's not a straight line from broken to fixed. It's spiral-shaped like fusilli pasta. Which, by the way, goes great with salmon and mood-stabilizing leafy greens. Some days you spiral up toward joy and energy and hope. Some days you spiral down toward the familiar territory of struggle and doubt. But if you keep tending to the basics, feeding your body real food, moving in ways that feel good, sleeping like it matters, getting some sunlight, connecting with people who see you, the spiral keeps moving in the right direction. The person I am now still has depression. But she also has tools. She knows that her mood is connected to what she eats, how she moves, whether she's getting enough sleep. She knows that isolation makes everything worse and that asking for help is brave, not weak. She knows that joy isn't a lightning bolt that strikes randomly. Joy is a practice. It's a series of small choices, snacks, stretches, and second chances. So if your soul feels like it's running on empty, try feeding it. Gently. Honestly. Deliciously. Start where you are. Maybe that's adding one vegetable to your day. Maybe it's walking around the block. Maybe it's going to bed 30 minutes earlier. Maybe it's calling a friend instead of scrolling through their social media. Small changes compound. Tiny choices add up. And sometimes the most radical thing you can do for your mental health is eat a piece of salmon and get some sunlight. Your brain chemistry is not your destiny. Your current mood is not your permanent address. And you, yes you, are worth the effort it takes to feel better. Now go eat something green and hug someone you love. Doctor's orders. Thank you for trying again today.